Okay, hey everybody. We're excited that you're joining us tonight. And Jessica Bianco is going to tell us all about getting over burnout from being parents. So we're so excited to hear from her. And Jessica is one of the founders of Kimber Academy, which is a national organization. Jessica?
Yes, we're a national academy for students K through 12. A lot of online participation, and there's also some local academies in different places across America. So I am in the Linden location here in Utah. So lots of good things to share tonight. I'm excited. Thanks for this opportunity.
Yeah. And Kimber Academy, just so people have an idea, how would you sum up what Kimber Academy is?
Well, we are on a mission to, and I'm actually, while we're doing this, I'm actually, since you guys, you're asking, that's what my first slide is about.
Oh, okay.
So
Can we
I'm just,
just get started?
yeah, let me get started. I can tell you guys a little bit about Kimber, and then we can just roll into, is that all right? Is that okay with you?
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Okay,
Okay.
let's see. I'm
So
on
I'm
just,
turning the time over to you. And I can also let participants in so you're
oh,
not distracted by that if you want.
oh, that'll be great. Thank you so much, Brooke. Thank you. Okay, so as Brooke said, I'm Jessica Bianco, and I'm actually the national director for the Kimber Academy. And the Kimber Academy is a school. It's basically an online and local education center, and we're on a mission to restore education to the rightful place, which is putting it in the hands of parents. And it's really hard for a lot of people to break free from the system that they've known for so long in public school. And I went to public school as a child, all my siblings did. And well, my younger siblings were actually homeschooled because my parents finally found out they could homeschool. And so, but we'll get a little more into that later. But I do want to let you know that everything that I talk about here today, you can find in this Restoring America's Educational Dream. And I am going to be sending everybody who wants one, if you want to scan this QR code right there on your screen. I mean, it's at the bottom of your screen right now, or you can go to kimberschool.com/free, and we can send you a copy of this, and you can get the references that I'm talking about here. And even the 12 steps to avoid the parent burnout is in there. And there's different things just more in depth. And alongside, we'll send you a catechism on the United States Constitution, which is how school children used to learn the Constitution back in the 1800s. So if you're close by, you can come pick it up. If you're far away, there's a small shipping fee just attached. It's just really to cover the shipping cost, but it's not a lot. So do take advantage of that. I think every parent should have this little manual at home. It's very, very useful. We use it everywhere. If you have questions and you're on the Zoom call, just feel free to raise your hand and I can answer questions as we go through this presentation. So like I said, we are on a mission to restore the education and putting it in its proper place. And when we do that, when parents say, okay, I am ready to take this into my own hands, I know there's something different that I need to be doing for my child. But immediately when that happens, there is a lot of anxiety and a lot of frustrations because you immediately get burned out. Well, you can get burned out very, very quickly. And so I am going to go through some things that will help you to not feel like that. So here we go. We're going to just jump right into it. And I'm going to go through step number 1. Now, let me mind you, our Kimber Academy is a God, family, country methodology school. So everything that we do, we bring God into the picture. So you're going to hear me talk a lot about God and the higher power, because there are eternal and truths that come from this higher power. So if you don't believe in God, I'm sorry, I guess, that I can't give you something that's not spiritually related. But the fact is that God has been in our history since forever, the beginning of time. People have believed in a higher power, higher than themselves, that created us. And so I'm going to be talking a lot about that. And hear me out. hear me out, okay? So step one, you want to receive confirmation from the Holy Spirit on what is the best thing for your child. So the first thing you need to do, if you're saying, you know, I need to do something different for my child, if that's what you're feeling, that's already something inside you of your mother or father's intuition that's saying that something needs to change. And so you want to go ahead, and if you believe in God, great, say a prayer, ask the Holy Spirit where you should be directed. You know, if you don't, you know, if you search for your best judgment, but always go for inspiration versus accreditation. So a lot of parents are ultra concerned about, you know, where's my child going to get this education? Is this person certified? Is this person accredited? I'm here to tell you that you are the best teacher that your child could have. Okay. You wouldn't be given offspring, be it by God or by nature, if you could not teach that child, that offspring, how to survive. Okay, how to survive and thrive. Okay, that is just true principles right there. So remember that you are the best teacher that you can have. So when you're searching for your answers, don't go towards, oh, are they certified? Are they accredited? Or is this the, you know, the best professor in the world? Go by what your heart, what you're feeling, because that's probably the right thing. Okay. And you are what you need to be. I guarantee you that. I have 4 children, and this was when I was in public school, in the 9th grade. I would come home, and I went to school in Utah. Just roll back a little bit. I went to school in Utah most of my life. My family is originally from Brazil, and my dad came when he was just 14, so he went to public school, and I did, and so I did too. And in Brazil, it's illegal to homeschool or do anything different. So you need to go to school, either public or private school. So we went to public school, but I would come home and I would tell my dad and my mom some things that were happening in the public school, and some things that teachers were saying that were okay. And that, you know, all these different, and a lot of them is just what we're seeing today, but I was seeing it when I was in the 9th grade. So I just turned 40, and it's been a long time now that I was in the 9th grade. And so these things that we're seeing in the schools have been happening for quite some time. And so I told them this, and my parents followed the spirit immediately, and we're like, no, we need to do something about this, and which we did. And so a lot of our family worked really hard to keep a lot of the immorality out of schools for many, many years. And so I'm very grateful for that, for them following that intuition immediately. So step number 2, I do not take counsel from your fears. This is a real big quote from Dr. Kimber, who is the founder of Kimber Academy, and we like to refer to him as Grandpa Kimber. If he's on tonight, he may be very mad if I say to him Dr. Kimber. He hates being called Dr. Kimber, even though he has doctorates in education, but he doesn't like being called that. He prefers to be called Grandpa Kimber, and he tells us, do not take counsel from your fears. As soon as you get that how do you call the inspiration, as soon as you get your inspiration of what you need to do, you are going to be flooded with fear. That's the first thing that's going to come to your mind, almost like buyer's remorse. Like, oh, should I have bought that? I don't know. So now it's like, should I actually do this? And it's very normal. It happens to everybody. So you need to go in and start looking a little deeper and saying, okay, am I feeling inspiration or desperation? And what is the difference between that? So desperation is going to look dark, and it's going to look gloomy, and it's going to feel heavy. It's not going to feel like the right thing. Where inspiration is going to feel positive, and you're going to be, I know I can do this. Like, it's going to be uplifting. It's not going to be, dreary. So ask yourself, what are your fears? Will they go to college? This is a big one. How are they going to get a job? If I decide that I want to do alternate education with my children, or is that what they're going to do? Or are they going to be prepared for the world? Yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, homeschool or even a private school, or is it going to be expensive? All of these fears are going to come for you. And I'm here to tell you that you can overcome all these fears if you look towards the heavens. If you look towards the heavens and this is the right thing for you, that this is what you're being inspired to do, you don't have to get burnt out by all these feelings, these desperate feelings, because a way will be provided for you to do it. And if you're willing, the way will be provided. So don't take counsel from your fears, okay? Step 3. This is a big one. We're going to spend a lot of time in this step, okay? And it's important because I need to tell you guys about the public education system and how it was set up. So don't try to duplicate the public education system at home, okay? This is the biggest thing we do wrong, and it's the one that causes us the most turmoil and the most burnout, is us trying to duplicate what we at home, what we have learned from the public school system. So it's been around now for, over 100 years, 140 years almost now, the education system that we know today. Well, more like 120 years or so that it's been mainstream. And so we're all accustomed to it. Mother is accustomed to it. Father is accustomed to it. Grandpa, grandma, everyone's accustomed to that. And when we notice that there's a problem in our child's education, we're like, okay, I'm going to pull them out, but I want something where it's going to be the same as public school, only better. Okay. That's what we think. And so I want to tell you, do you guys think the system was designed for success of the child or for failure of the child? So I'm here to say that the one thing is certain. You can decide that for your own child. I'm not here to decide what's better for your child or not. But I do know one thing, that the system, for what it's designed to do, it's being successful. The system is being successful on what it's designed to do. So let's go into that a little bit. And in order for us to learn a little bit more about that, we want to talk about the first cycle of the education here in America. So its intention was to improve and perpetuate the principles that, the Americans or the colonists that came brought with them, which was they wanted, economic and religious freedom, and they wanted their children to grow up in a place where their traditions mattered and they wouldn't forget their language and all of these things. So this system, okay, of the first American cycle of education, it lasted about 225 years. And you can see there on the screen the age, and it went through the mid 1930s. It was very strictly discipline and preparation for the child's professional life. So whatever it is that they were going to be doing in the future, very, very focused. So parents would usually, find an apprenticeship for a child very young, especially the boys, very young at age, so that they could be prepared and provide for their families. And parents were responsible for this, not the government. Parents would be the ones that would be out looking for this education. And by the 1700s, the children that went to school already knew how to read and write. It was not the school's job to teach your child to read and write. By the time you enrolled them in that little community school, or any school for that matter, if you ship them off to a boarding school, whatever it was, they needed to know how to read and write before that happened. So they never placed that on top of the school. It was always the parent. It was considered bad parenting if you couldn't teach your kid to read or write. Now, see here on the side, I have some of the resources. The Noah Webster Dictionary is the 1828 dictionary. It pretty much it mainstreams the English language, and it's a beautiful dictionary. All of the biblical terms are in this dictionary, and that's how we came with the American language. I also have to the side there the McGuffey readers. I was going to put in one that's even older than the McGuffey readers. It started in the 1700s. This one was the McGuffey readers was the main textbook for schools in the 1800s, in the early 1800s, mid 1800s. lasted a very long time. We still use them in many of our academies. I love them. I love teaching out of them. They're incredible. And then the other one was the New England Primer. It's not here. I have a copy at home. I wish I had brought it to show you guys. It's a little blue primer, and it's how they taught kids to read. So this moms would use this at home. It's how they taught them to read and write, was this little little primer. And they needed to like memorize a scripture every week. It was very, very intense, instruction. So it wasn't just fun and games. So the emphasis was just reading and writing. And the reason why we wanted to read and write was because they needed to understand the Bible. They needed to understand the Constitution. They needed to understand these old documents. And if they didn't know how to read and write, they wouldn't be able to understand them. That is the biggest emphasis. They figured that sciences, math, all of these things would be learned naturally at a little bit of an older age. And so until they were 7-year-olds, they would be just focused on reading and writing and penmanship. Penmanship was very important. Okay. This is a little quote from Noah Webster, and he helps, his dictionary, like I said, is a biblical worldview. And he talks about how educating our youth is of the most important. So he says the education of youth is an employment of more consequence than making laws and preaching the gospel, because it lays the foundation on which both laws and gospel rest for success. Without education, you can't have freedom of religion, you can't have freedom of speech, you can't have any of those things that we have if we don't have education. So this was important for forever. Education has been important since the dawn of time. Okay. So in the scriptures, we learned about the Lord's plan. And this is so you can understand their mindset back in those days. This is what they were trying to accomplish. They were trying to accomplish students that were selfless, that knew the word of the Lord, that would do this by free will, that they would understand free will. They would understand how to self-govern and progress by self-government, not by people telling them what to do. It was not political, but based on family. And, 1 second. Sorry. The people needed to depend on God. This is what they wanted to teach them in the middle of their education. They needed to, because they believed that this is how, the scriptures tell us, this is how you make well-rounded adults and citizens, okay? And they were in contrast to, selfishness, philosophies of man, force, control, political and corruption, and dependence on a system. The only system that in the scriptures that we should be following are God's laws. That's the system. So they wanted so that the student could grow up and become a leader in the world. They needed to know these things so that they could pass good laws, elect good leaders, and that's how they depended their entire society on this kind of education. So I want you to keep Satan's plan in your mind a little bit and the Lord's plan, because you're going to need it throughout the rest of the presentation. We go into the second cycle of education, which is...
Your car's... My mom's car went rogue.
Hey, Tana, do you have a question?
Now where are we going? 11. And then Miss Fur's house.
There we go. It's okay. So America's second cycle of education was both experimental and exploratory, okay? So a lot of the principles that we are in education today, you'll find that if you do a little bit of research, you'll find that a lot of those things were being used in Europe, like in Prussia. If you go and search, we'll talk a little about who was behind that and who actually visited Prussia to bring this education system that we have here. And it was a complete experiment, okay? It has humanistic and communistic views. A lot of people don't know what humanistic means. It actually sounds really good. It sounds, oh, well, it's with humans. We're going to protect humans. And it's going to be okay. We're going to learn a little bit more about humanity and how to be more human. But it's not quite what the word means. So this one started in the late 1800s, okay? a really important thing to note is that in this system, they wanted to teach students that there was no absolutes. So there's no real truth. There's no real right and there's no real wrong. You know, it's just education based on your social environment. Okay. That's why they say self-realization. So I have there, what is self-realization? Realizing how you feel about certain things versus what those things really are. Okay, that was the goal of this education, because the people behind this education felt like this was how they wanted to teach kids, that the kids had to abandon some things so they could realize how they felt about certain issues. So and they modernized the delivery system. Okay, so when I say delivery system, and this is one of the most important things, the second cycle of education is not just about the curriculum, because we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about how God is removed, about how truth is removed, but a lot of people forget about the delivery system. And this is where we get the most burnout, because we try to deliver education the same way the public school delivers education. And that is not, unfortunately, it's not the best way. Okay, it's just not the best way. So let's go on here. I'm just looking at our time so that I can get through this with you guys, because there's so much important things in here. So Horace Mann, he was born in the late 1700s, and he is considered the father of modern education. There's his picture, a little bit of a painting of him. And he talks about what the church has been for the medieval man, the public school must become for the democratic and rational man. So he really wanted to end the religious influence on the people. He wanted to replace God with a concept of what he called the public good. So the public schools, which he called them the common schools, were to create this morality that they deemed was morality, not what the Bible or what they've known for, thousands of years of what morality was, but they wanted a pure intelligence, a morality that they would say was moral. Okay. And so let's talk about Horace Mann for just a minute and what that humanist movement is that I was talking about a little earlier. So he was a member of the secular humanist movement. And this here, I don't know if you guys can see my little bubble, but there's a little blue bubble on the screen, and I'm circling this little guy here that has the little hands up in the air here to the right. That's the humanism logo. It's the symbol, okay? And a few things, very basic, obviously. There's no creator, so they don't believe in a supreme being of any sort. Atheism, right? There's no inalienable rights. So you're not born just by virtue of being born, or just being alive, just by virtue of being alive, you have inalienable rights. And they don't believe in that. They believe that there's none. We as a people just decide what our rights are. There is no fixed standard of morality. So there's no rules, no set of guidelines, no divine purpose to life. Man has no soul. Man has no responsibility to any supreme being for the way he treats his fellow man. There is no future life, and there is no divine judgment. So if you remove all of these things from education, all of a sudden, what stories are we going to use? How do we get like a story problem and tell them how we solve this if there's no real purpose other than our own gain? Because that's all it's for. It's for your own personal gain. There's no other, you don't have to report to anybody or anything. Okay. So that's a very just scratch of the surface of what the humanist movement is. You can look that up more on Google. Make sure you put like secular humanism so that you can understand a little bit better. There's a lot of information there. And if you want more information, there's a little more in that manual that I said in the front, in the beginning at kimberschool.com/free. So Horace Mann had a very good student, a pupil, and his name was John Dewey. It was a student of Horace Mann. And John Dewey just embraced everything that Mr. Mann, had, and he just loved it. And he decided that he would perpetuate his, ideas. So he became the father of the progressive education. And it's what we see today. It's very important that you know that the education that we see today, our systems, John Dewey developed them. And we've been perpetuating his system ever since. So if you Google John Dewey, he is praised, for everything in education that we have today. He's the one that came up with, dividing the kids up into their age groups, moving kids from building to building so that you have an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school, separating, students if you've ever heard, you have twins, for instance, or you have siblings that are in the same class. Oh, we can't have them in the same class because it stops their social development, or it hinders their development. So he had all these ideas, which are just simply not very, they weren't very tested. These were just ideas because he felt like, families shouldn't be together. We needed to separate them because that's how we take the accountability to a higher power from them. So he talks about how, faith in the prayer, hearing God, is an unproved and outmoded faith. There is no God, there is no soul. Hence, there are no needs for props of traditional religion. With the dogma and creed excluded, the immutable truth is also dead. So he's talking about there's no truth. It's dead and buried. So there's no room for fixed natural law or moral absolutes. So he wanted a system that would just bring all those barriers down. He felt like those were barriers. To believe in God was a barrier. To believe that there's natural law was a barrier, and to believe that there's truth was a barrier. So he wanted to take all of those things out of education. So throughout my rest of my presentation, you're going to see a lot of this pop up. Do not judge alternate education by public school standards. I feel like a lot of that is being brought down. I mean, Utah Parents United is a great organization. There's other organizations out there that are teaching that there are other ways to educate our kids. And I think it's great. But one thing that's going to burn you out the most as a parent when you realize all these things is your innate, you just want to go there like, oh, but in public school, they did this, or, I was sure about this. So do not judge what you are doing for your child by the public school standards. Why would you want to standardize your child? Your child is not standard. Your child is extraordinary. He is amazing, or she is amazing. She's got gifts that only she or he has. So don't judge what's happening in their education by the public school standards, okay? Okay, I'm not going to go too much into this. I just wanted to mention that by 1966, we had already been very much into, if you want to take a picture of this screen and read this quote later, it's very large, but Marion G. Romney, he was the former assistant prosecuting attorney in Salt Lake City. And he was talking about how we had already adopted all of these socialistic problems in our society, socialistic ideals, because of the system of the schooling. That's how they were able to implement it, okay? So let's talk about modern education, the Dewey system examples, okay? The system benefits just by the attendance of your child. So we're not focused on the child, we're focused on perpetuating the system, okay? Circumstances, emotions, and opinions are what they're teaching our kids, which takes on the philosophies of man here. I'm just on the other side of the screen, you can look at the socialism and compare these two things. All right, how this is, and this is just a scratch. Like, this is just, there are so many more examples I can give, but it was going to take too many slides. And so I just was trying to bundle up this and group it as best as I could for you guys to understand. Then the force of the attendance and the homework requirements and etc. They're not necessarily learning, they're just giving a lot of busy work sometimes to these students. Now, granted, there are some kids that we need to say, hey, you got to sit here, you got to learn these times tables. Like, we know that this is important and this is going to help them. But there are other, how many times have you sat next to your child and go, why are we doing this homework? Like, why are we doing this? It's very, more than once. I can say that my parents sat down to me. I was like, why is this assignment important? And so it was just to keep me busy at home. Or why do we need to attend today? Why, a lot of times my family wanted to go on vacations. My dad worked for himself, and so we could go off whenever we wanted. And we found that we couldn't because of school. You aren't going to graduate if you miss so much. You have to make it up in the summer. Who wants to do that? Nobody. So the other one is controlling, so unable to go ahead in particular subject. My brother is a great example of that. He was very advanced in all the subjects, and he couldn't go ahead. He couldn't, the teachers wouldn't allow him to go to another class. Like, there was no more advanced class. He could go to the next grade level, but that wasn't allowed until he reached the 9th grade, which was really a miracle in our family. They actually allowed my brother to skip a grade. That was like a crazy thing. No one skips a grade, in public school, but somehow they allowed him to skip a grade. So my brother did not do the 9th grade. He went from 8th to 10th grade and graduated a year early. So, but that is not common. There's a lot of hoops to jump, and they made him work hard every summer. He had to do summer school every summer just so that he could make up the credits so that he could graduate and have a diploma. So yes, he did skip the grade, but he had to put in so much extra work. It was unbelievable. So then we have the standardization by the government, right? Your success is dictated by how well you can navigate the system, is what I was telling you about my brother. Like, you have to find those loopholes, but then you still have to do what the system tells you, which means the system is also corruptible. It can be corrupt, right? And then the other one that we want to talk about is it creates fear in the parents and removes their role in the education of their child, which means they become dependent on the system. So everything in our modern education is really very, dictated by socialism. One thing I forgot to tell you guys is that Mr. Dewey, John Dewey, he was a communist and also part of the humanist movement. When you guys get a chance, you can go and read the humanist ideals, like they call them their ideals, or the Communist Manifesto. It will literally blow your mind if you haven't done that already. And everything that they said they would do in those documents is what's happening in society today. And they accomplished it. Instead of doing it by just normal force, what they did was they embedded it all into the child's education, so that as they grew up, they did not see, we didn't see, the society didn't see, our grandparents didn't see, they were busy going to work, and they needed, they were doing all these things, and no one really noticed. They just thought, well, they have good teachers, or here in Utah, we have good teachers, we have a good society here, a good community. These things aren't going to happen here. Well, they have happened, and that's a lot what's going on right now. And so please, when you are thinking about alternate education with your child, or if you're feeling burnt out, even where they are right now, like you're a slave to the public school, like this is what you're doing, it's not your fault. It really isn't. But you do need to make a change. I'm here to tell you that you can make a change, and it's possible, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't. When we seek help from the heavens, it doesn't have to be overwhelming. So real quick, I want you, if you're at home or if you're watching this later, I want you to do a little bit of quick math. So when you want to learn a new skill, or even in marketing, I used to do a lot of marketing. So whenever you want to learn a new skill or do marketing, you need to show these things to whoever your audience is, so that they can want something, or you need to spend time right in that skill. If you're going to play baseball, you got to spend time with baseball. If you're going to learn, to roller skate or to ice skate, there's a lot of time that's required for that. So I want you to just put that in context of your family, and put down, how many hours you spend with your kids and where their time is being spent. So here we are. This is my family. Here we are. This was just last Sunday. We went up to the canyon. It was so nice. We spent the Sunday afternoon there because, even though I run the school where my kids are, we have a lot of time that we're still apart. Like I am struggling to find time with my family, even when I'm doing the alternate education, and it's still difficult. So we have to always be reevaluating what we're doing with our kids. So here we go. So you put down 168 hours. That's your quiz. Okay, here's your quiz. 168 hours is 1 week. That's how much time we get. Then you put the sleep time. Like if you're lucky, you're going to get 8 hours of sleep for each of your kids. Great. Their personal care is about 21 hours. This is their personal bathroom, shower time, all of those things. Church, if you go to church or if you go to another activity once a week, there we go. Personal time, 6 hours of study, exercise, sports, and dance. And that's not a lot, right? That's like not even an hour a day. So an hour per weekday of this extra time. School, 35 hours a week, and family day, 12 hours, right? I would just put that's my Sunday. That's my Sunday with my kids. The what's left of all of this for me is 35 hours. Now yours is going to look different. It may be different, but this helps you reflect on where you're having your kids spend time, or are you with your kids? Because believe it or not, the most important thing you can do is have quality time with your family. This will be the one that will ease your burnout the most, is if you have quality time with your family. And if that's your focus, then everything else will be much easier. It will be more simple for you. So, I had to look at those 35 hours, and this doesn't include, let me look here. Let me go to the next slide for you to see. So 5 hours a day. It does not include my travel time. It does not include entertainment. It does not include any social events, hangouts, the kids alone in their room, gaming, anything that they're doing. This doesn't include any of those things, my hours. So I've got 35 hours, 5 hours a day to be with my kids and influence them as a parent without burning that relationship. I've got to influence them without burning the relationship. So where do we fit that family quality time? So you want to be asking yourself that question and really dig deep on what you want to be doing. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be, I go on a trip every week. It can be simple, but you actually, even with your teenagers, people ask, oh, well, what about the teens? They don't listen to us. They want to do what they want to do. Even as a teenager, your influence is worth more than anybody else's, even though it may not seem like it. You may feel like it's their friend, right? Or it's their teacher at school, or it's the movie, or it's the media they're watching, but you are actually the most important influencer in your child's life. Even if right now is a hard time, fast forward a year, 2 years, 5 years, maybe even 10, you will still be that most important influencer. They will always go back to what you have taught them and to the times they've spent with you and the relationship that you have created with them. So remember that. And that will save you a lot of headache, and you can be certain, I taught my kids these things. You can say, okay, I can let them go in the world and they can make good choices. And if they don't make good choices, they will learn from them because they will go back to what I taught them. And you can be sure of that. Okay. So we're going to, after, wrapping up step 3, that was a huge step, but I think it's so important for us to go through that, because without understanding where we are and where our mindset is, because of what we've been influenced in the system, that we are all part of, we're all part of this system. We have to understand, and I'm not telling this for you to be gloom. There is hope and there is light at the end of the tunnel. And like I said, you are the most important person in your child's life. You are the best teacher. So I'm going to go into step 4 and say, if you choose, I'm going to remind you, sometimes you are going to get the answer that your child needs to stay in public school. That may be the answer for your family. I can't tell you that. I've had friends where that was the answer, and it's still working out very well. That's not the answer I got for my family, but it may be for yours. But if you choose and you're inspired to go to homeschool or a different, or like home or any kind of thing like that, you can say it's home tutoring. That you can the stigma of homeschooling is dropping every day. Every day there's more homeschoolers. I think with COVID, we're like in the 5 millions, there's a lot of homeschoolers right now. And you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm going to be weird, or the kids are going to be weird. There's so many co-ops, tutoring centers, family, friends, parents, neighborhood hubs, little groups of people that are doing it together. So you guys, last year, 4.3 million people in homeschool. Okay. 4.3 million. So you're going to ask me, so a lot of people ask, well, what about private and charter schools? Like, they're great options too. Like, they're very great options, but just mind when you're doing the private or charter schools actually follow a lot of the public school standards. So I'd be very, very involved, be involved in your child's education in the charter school. And the private school, they also have requirements so that they can be accredited. So there's requirements they have to follow, even though they're not, they say they're completely independent, but there are requirements so that they can be accredited. Remember that. Accreditation means you follow the state standards of education. Just remember that. Anything that says accredited, that's what you're doing. You're following state requirements. And charter and private schools need to follow state requirements if they want to be accredited. So just remember that. Don't worry about the accreditation though. We're going to get a little more into that just in a little bit. So step 5, this is just a quick one. Do a diagnostic testing with your child. We do them 3 times a year at the Kimber Academies. And it's one of the best tools that we have to give parents confidence that their child is learning. Because once you decide alternate education, you're like, is my child learning? Is he? I think he's going too slow. The neighbor, he knows how to do long division and my child doesn't. Like, they're the same age. Do diagnostic testing. If, they have some free ones online. There's many curriculums that offer diagnostic testing. I really love ours because it compares what children their age in public school would be learning. And you're going to find that once you take your child's education to your hands, they'll actually be learning much faster, and it's most likely they will be ahead. I can't guarantee that, but as I've seen in the beginning, they kind of struggle a little bit, but then as soon as they take off, they soar, and they are usually, 2-3 steps ahead of their peers. So once again, just a little reminder, remember, don't judge alternate education, because by now you're probably going, oh, all those fears are coming in. But chances are you felt something that you should be doing and you already have some fear going in. So don't judge that by the public school standards. Remember, you don't want to standardize your child. Your child is not standard. So remember that. Step 6 is we make sure that the curriculum, I recommend you choose a curriculum that is based on God, family, country. Okay. Do not select it by age level, but you do want to select it by their level of learning and according to their interest. If your student loves science, for goodness sakes, let him do science. Let him do science. You can put language arts, math, history, all into science. Oh, but he needs a book for each thing. If you can't get him to pick up anything else and all he'll read is that chemistry book, you can teach him all of these things through the chemistry book. Believe me. Just, search inspiration, because you will get burned out by saying, please get this book here. Now you got to do this. Now you got to do that. Just let him follow his interest. Okay. Benjamin Franklin was one of the greatest minds to ever live on the earth. Okay. And he says that an inclination joined with the ability. So you have to be inclined and you have to have ability to serve mankind, one's country, friends, and family should indeed be the great aim and end of all learning. So he believed he's inventor, right? He was the most organized man. If you've gone through all of his 13 virtues, if you haven't seen it, Google it. It is awesome. So he would practice these virtues every day. And as He was, and if he didn't master, or if he broke one of those virtues, he would write it in his journal, and then he would do better at that virtue the next day. He would make it his goal. So he was a very disciplined man, and he was very productive. He was one of the most productive men to ever live. Like I think there's not many people more that got so much done. He was a multitasker. He got tons of things done. So if you have a chance to study Benjamin Franklin, do. He's awesome. Step 7, encourage creativity. Like I said, encourage creativity talents in all subjects. If you're teaching a story and you want the kids to act it out, they love acting out stories. Write letters telling your grandparents, this is what have them, Mom, Grandma, this is what I learned today, and get them creating relationship through the things that they're learning. Baking for math. I learned all of my fractions through cooking, and I couldn't get it. And then one day I was making bread like I always do, and it just clicked on me. Wow. Oh, I can do this now. And so I understand what 2 halves are. I understand what 3/4 are, because I had a vision about it in my mind now. Every time I saw the book, I saw cookbooks. Every time I saw my math book. So do encourage creativity. This is going to relieve a lot of stress, and you're going to have good quality time with your kids while doing it. Okay. Step 8, we are going to remember, well, this is for me. And what I really meant to say here is do what works for you, but the greatest learning takes place in the mornings. Benjamin Franklin said that all of his best inventions, all of his research was done in the mornings. And then after 2 o'clock, he only did little things like he worked on his garden, or he went to do some errands, because he believed that the morning was when he had the most inspiration and it was most productive. And I believe that too. I've done it for my family, and the mornings are the best thing. So, but some families work better in the afternoon. So remember, if it's working for you in the afternoon, don't change that. Don't change what's working. For me, it's mornings, but do make sure that they're that you are prepared for the day, and the kids are dressed, ready for school, be it whatever you decide that they wear for school. But I would say, have them brush their hair. Don't make them take off their pajamas, because those things will be, no matter what you do, that keeps you in hot chocolate by the fireplace mode. So, and it's very hard to learn in that kind of a mode. You just want to turn on the TV and binge watch all day. But if they're dressed and they get ready for the day, then learning will do best. Okay. Number 9, focus on love of learning. So if you're feeling frustrated and the kids aren't getting it, or you're just get a change of scenery for a bit, focus on the relationship, because it's the relationship that is going to bring that love of learning with your child. And this will happen with teens too. Take them to a museum, or with the young kids, take them on a nature walk. Even if they're frustrated at school, maybe they need to stay home a day. Maybe if they're that frustrated, they need to stay home with you, and you need to take them somewhere with you, take them to work with you. These focus on that relationship, and the love of learning will come, because then the experiences will be, I learned so much with my parents, and they'll want to also perpetuate that for their own kids. So focus on the relationship more than anything else. The other one on this part is, I consider building your family library. Your family library tells a lot about who your family is. Let your kids help pick the books. Find a corner in your house. Go right now. You can go to the DI and get a shelf for $15 if you don't have one. Put it on the side of your living room and start collecting books. Just start. Find the ones the kids love. It can be science magazines. It can be comic books, but the good ones, because there's some really not good ones. Make sure you vet them before you give them to your kids. But it will change the whole spirit of your house, the whole spirit. I also do nightly just book readings with my kids. It really enhances the relationship. They love it. Even my 13-year-old loves it when I sit in the bedroom and just tell them stories. And he's 13. Like the teenagers love it. So do continue that throughout your life. But the bookshelf with your books is going to tell your children what your family is about. Okay. Step 10, we're almost done, you guys, hang in there. Knowledge isn't yours until you give it away. Give out knowledge to your children. Teach them to give knowledge away. Everything that they learn, let them post it on Facebook. Let them tell their cousins. Let them write to their grandparents. Share with the dog if that's what they want to share, whatever, but let them share. Once they are, this is our one thing that sets us apart from all the other schools, is all of our learning is based on us teaching it to somebody else. And when you have to teach it to someone else, you're going to want to know your stuff. And the little kids, they'll want to gather all the information they can. The bigger kids, they're going to go to books, they're going to research, they want to tell everything that they can because they want to know that they did a good job. So maybe once a week you rotate who teaches in your family. And we have accustomed to doing that, like sometimes with religious things, but let them teach about science, let them teach about history, let them, do those things. They're going to love it and they're going to retain the information so much more. And I feel like that's something that in public school, they don't have a lot of time to do. I feel like a lot of teachers would like to do this, but sometimes they don't have time to let students, you're going to teach the class tomorrow or next week. Do let them teach what they are learning. Numbers 11, a very important one, is mother and father work together. Now, I know that there's some families that, this is not possible, that we have different kinds of families, but when mom is guiding and correcting the child, and then the father comes in and praises good effort without criticism, your child will always want to do their best, his or her best. Okay. We get in the habit, at least, moms do sometimes because they're tired of the day, and we'll get in the habit, to have the father always do the correcting. And sometimes that's essential. Okay. The father needs to be on the mom's side and say, yes, we're going to correct the child. But with education, with learning, mom, you guide the child when they do something. Oh, look, this is not quite right. Let's fix that. And dad, when dad gets home, oh, mom, look, honey, look at what Johnny did today. It is so good. He has been doing so much better on his cursive writing. And dad, even if it doesn't look that great, you're still going to say, I am so proud of your effort to do better, Johnny. We don't talk about if it looks bad. Mom will correct the child. So whoever, if you have a relationship like that, if you don't have both around, maybe you can designate grandpa, because he's a great person for that. Or maybe even grandma can come in and praise the good efforts. Okay. You want to create that relationship and work together with another parent, because just one together, they're going to find someone else out there that's going to praise their good efforts. If we're just saying to the child, oh, you need to do better, you need to do better, you need to do better, then they're going to find someone outside of your home, who's outside of your circle of trust, to go get that praise, because they want the praise, especially as they get into their teenager years. This is really, and I have to say really quick, because in elementary school, the system brings in women mostly to guide the students. And then as you go into the higher grades, you start seeing more men. And that's done purposely in the system. It's done because as you get into your teens, you gravitate towards the men. You want a male figure to approve of your behavior or approve of your work. And so they do that so that there creates a trust between the student and the teacher. Okay. And that's just something I wanted to throw in there. There's more about that in the book that we are giving out for free. So make sure you guys sign up to get that free book. Okay. And last, I want to talk about step 12, properly insulated in the home. Okay. If we follow the example that the heavens or God teaches us, he uses to isolate the leaders, but it's not an isolation. It is an insulation. He's going to insulate the kids. Okay. He's not going to isolate them from the world, because leaders need to know what's happening in the world. But we want to insulate them properly so that they have been prepared to face it. And when they do, they know exactly how to react to that situation. So they're going to be in the world, but not of the world. They won't try to be fitting in. They're not going to go after the little peer groups because they need to fit into the popular group. They're going to be stand on their own 2 feet and know that they are divine children with a divine heritage, and they can stand out in the world and become leaders. So that is step 12. Now, I know this can be sometimes, there's a lot of steps, but there are very, once we go to the heavens, these things can all be simplified, really, they really can. So I guess I want to open up to any questions or anything. I kind of ran through my presentation because I wanted to get through it, because I think every step is important. And I just was wondering if anyone has any questions or comments for me. Let's see. Don't see any hands raised. Here, I'm going to take out this share screen. Well, actually, I'm going to go here. When I was talking about insulating, do not despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believers in the word and conversation and charity and spirit and faith and in purity. So we need to let our kids be this, because this is what's going to make them leaders, as be an example in the world. So no questions. I'm just going to jump to the 5 takeaways. If you're there, you can take a screenshot. Seek inspiration. Find your family standards. Beware of public schooling at home, which is that don't bring the public school into your house. Do what you need to do for your child, not what the public system is telling you. Quality over quantity. Do not I got to finish this book this year. Make sure it's quality. And sometimes it is. Maybe it is a race to finish the book because that's the quality. But above all, relationship over scholarship. Do not swap that. Don't swap your relationship over the academics you're trying to give to your child. Here are the free resources again, if you want to get them. And there's the suggestions on building your family library, books that we suggest. And you can also get really good Constitution training with the Catechism on the Constitution. We did this curriculum once as parents during COVID. We did a Zoom call, and this is a very good resource for just small groups to do together. You learn so much about the Constitution, and because there's also history behind each of the amendments and things, and so it's really a fun way to learn. So Brooke, tell me, anything else you'd like to talk about?
No, I love this. This was so affirming to, because I am planning on homeschooling, and I said, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to be a car salesman. I'm like, cool. We're going to go tour cars, learn everything we can, ask them their worst and best sales stories, and we'll write them up, and we'll do, so, and so when you said just do science and everything else, the math will come, and have the creativity. It felt very good. Thank you for your presentation. I have a question. You've given this presentation a lot, correct?
A few times, yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did.
And so what have parents asked before, or what comments have you heard from them after hearing it, and then they go and take action?
Usually exactly what you just said. Most of the parents I've given this to are parents that are feeling like, oh, I need to do something different with my child, and they just need a boost, like, hey, let's go do this. That's one of the biggest questions. And then they also ask about curriculum, where they can find curriculum, I'm going to stand by the Kimber curriculum because that's what I love, but there are other great curriculums out there too. I know you have some on your website, Brooke, that I was going through, and they've got some great options over there. So
can we buy the Kimber curriculum? I saw the primer and so I use the Good and the Beautiful after school with my son to get him caught up, and I absolutely love it. But is there a language arts or math program that the Kimber Academy sells individually for each grade?
Yes, we have all things. We have the reading program for the non-readers, and then it's all Kimber. So Julianne Kimber, so She's actually Julianne Skousen. She's Cleon Skousen's daughter. So she's written over 100 curriculum pieces. So she has the Light Your Light Shine, that's for the young kids. Then there's Losing Yourself in Academic Service, which is our language arts. And everything that we learn there is based on using the information to serve your fellow man. And so all of our language arts is based on service. So they do service projects every week, more hands-on, where they actually go and do something. So that's a really good option too. But we have math, we have science, we don't have, we sell all of the curriculum, and people can do it at home. You can also create, we've been recommending to create pods, like maybe one or two, like 2 or 3 moms that want to do it together, and you guys can share, because, and we actually do training for parents so that they know how to use our curriculum and all of those things. And that is just included when you buy, you know, our curriculum. You can join our parent trainings and all of those things. So that is a good option if you want to look that up. We do trainings once a month during our parent nights.
Oh, that's great. Maybe you could post that. So I took a picture of this, but if you could post the link to, oh, it's right there. Never mind. So we have a question. What's the main difference between Kimber and Good and the Beautiful curriculum?
That's a good question. So the Good and the Beautiful is a little more, I like to say, developed. The Kimber curriculum leaves a lot of freedom for parents to choose how they're going to go in which direction. Where I feel the Good and the Beautiful, everything is laid out for you and you just follow all the steps. I mean, there's all the questions, all the things that the kids have to do, all the stories. Where the Kimber curriculum is a little more open, where you can bring in your own stories. And as you're feeling inspired, you bring what you want to bring in. So I feel like the Good and the Beautiful is like really good for people who need to start and are not, oh, I don't want to think about what I'm going to read to my child today, or I don't want to, you know, or that's too hard for me. So I feel like it has a little more structure of what you're used to in public school, like, because it just tells you step by step. The Kimber curriculum is more of an outline, and you go bringing in what you want to bring in from what you, like our science, for instance, there is no textbook for science. It literally is something that's like this thin right here, just really thin. And it has all of the terms, all the things they need to learn by section. Each section has all those things, but then it's a guide for how the student can go do research. And then they build their own textbook.
Oh.
And then the language arts, it's really, each principle is 1 page long. There's an example of what the principle is, like the first principle, a word, creating a word, for instance. What is a word? And so there's 1 page, and then there's the assignments that they have to do, and it's all done on a notebook. They write a lot. So it's a book that all of the curriculum they are writing. They're writing the entire thing, all the answers. The book has the question, and then you go and you write the answer in your notebook. A lot of Bible references, a lot of Constitution references. So we're going to be going to the Bible and the Constitution a lot, where I think the Good and the Beautiful has the stories or has the literature that they want you to go and look at and things like that. So that's what I would say is the most different.
So Connor Boyak's book, Passion Driven Education, my friend is doing that. That's all she's doing. Mm-hmm. You know, she uses online supplements like Khan Academy, and she's like, I'm just following their passion. So her daughter is baking cakes, and she's 13, and she's got her huge mixer, and she's making them for people, and she's really thrown herself into that with Khan Academy as a supplement. Now, some of the things you were saying was follow their passion. Like if you love science, do that, add everything into it. Does your materials, how does Kimber Academy combine with the ideas in passion-driven education?
I haven't really read passion-driven education. I haven't been really exposed to that from Connor Boyak, but from what I've heard from it, it does have a lot more resources, I believe, than the passion-driven education, from what I can tell from people have told me about it. So I can't really give you a comparison on it. I just know that with our curriculum, you can use it all, or you can choose just to focus on one subject. let's just say you want us to focus on history. Like I said, the history one is actually very well developed in a way where you could do all of the subjects within history. It's actually laid out for you on how to do that. The other ones, you'll have to seek a little more inspiration on how you want to do that. But we find the passion, just like that, like you're saying, we find what they love and we let them roll with it. There are some things as a mom that you're going to want to just say, oh, well, I actually want to have good penmanship. So, we do a little bit of a trade-off. We're going to do science, but here you're going to practice your cursive for 10 minutes a day. And then we're just going to do science for the rest of this day. So you can work with your kid in that way. That's okay. And that's what a lot of the training that we do with parents has a lot of those little tips for parents that are struggling with getting their kids. Oh, but I want them to read the classics. I want them to do these things. And we have to learn to let go a little bit of our passion and let their passion do the driving, be the driving force, because maybe you didn't get to read all the classics and you're feeling like you missed out, but maybe that's just not where your child is supposed to go. And everybody has a mission. And so I think where we're similar is we let the child, drive this education, but it's always parent centered. We recommend you meeting with your child on at least weekly, going over their work, going through and saying, okay, what did you like about this? What didn't you like about this? And you tell them how you think they can do better. Talk to them about it in a kind way. Obviously, don't be over criticizing, because you may kill their love for what they're doing. So I think that's kind of what I hope I answered a little bit of your question.
Yeah, you did. Thank you. It's been very, very helpful. Do you want to stop sharing your screen?
Oh,
And
yes,
we'll
yeah,
see
I should probably do that.
if there are any more questions. So I don't see any. So we will stop. And
Okay.
your presentation was fabulous. I feel so
Thank you.
empowered now. So thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
And hey, Corinne. I don't think she meant to say anything. I heard her husband.
Oh, I was going to say thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for doing this presentation. I loved it. And I'm in public school with my kids right now, and we're having some struggles, and this gave me some good things to work on even with them in public school. So it was very valuable, I think, to all parents to recognize how we can help our children find their passions and follow those, and not have to fit in to the public school box. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Corinne. I'm glad it was helpful. I really am. And thank you, Brooke, and everybody from UPU for allowing me to come in and do this presentation. I liked it. I loved it. And so I hope you guys can use it forever and ever.
Yeah, we will. We'll put it on our website and on Facebook. And anyway, hopefully a lot of parents will be able to benefit from your expertise and knowledge. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody. If you have any
Bye.
questions, just reach out to me.
Okay. Do you want to put your email in the chat?
Yes, let me put my email. I'm going to put it right there. And this is my personal email, and I will just, it comes to my box. Let's see. All right. And yep, there we go. There's my email, everyone. Feel free to reach out. Okay. Bye, Brooke.
Bye.